Has the car market returned to normal? Believe it or not, according to some experts, the answer is yes, despite the fact that by many metrics, the car market hasn't felt normal at all. Now, according to Cox Automotive, and I quote, "In just the last 4 months, we've seen an industry-wide disruption due to cyber breach, 2 major hurricanes within 2 weeks of each other, and significant selling day variations in the last 2 months. And let's not forget business disruptions in both factories and major ports of the East and Gulf Coast, several key model stop sales, and finally an election season that has everyone on the edge of their seats. Perhaps most surprisingly, despite all of the blips, things look remarkably normal in recent new vehicle inventory and sales data." End quote. And according to this mentioned new data, things in October of 2024, at least inventory-wise, are looking pretty damn close to how they were in October of 2019. Yes, pre-pandemic. But let's take a look for ourselves. Day supply inventory was at 81 days, which is 4 days more than what we saw last month, but almost more surprisingly, it's only 1 day less of inventory than what we saw in 2019. So when it comes to a day's supply standpoint, we are virtually neck and neck to what we saw in 2019, which is not only incredibly surprising given the context that I mentioned earlier, disruptions, hurricanes, and more, but it's even more surprising because even though inventory levels are technically normal, from a consumer's perspective, the car market truthfully feels anything but normal. And well, that's because it really isn't, even if some automotive experts want you to believe that it is. Sure, day supply of inventory is back to normal, but prices sure aren't. In fact, despite that we sit at 81 days supply or 2.76 million units of unsold inventory, average listing prices on cars are still very, very high, sitting at $47,823, which is up 2% from this time last year, but is up a whopping $10,000 from this time in 2019. Where the average vehicle listing price was $37,590 according to Kelley Blue Book. And according to KBB, in present day, average vehicle transaction price, or ATP, is sitting at $48,397, and vehicle incentives, which is measured as a percentage of average vehicle transaction price, while it is improving substantially, especially over the last year, it is still significantly lower than what we saw in 2019 and prior to the pandemic, with the average dealership incentives sitting at around 10 to 11% prior to the pandemic pretty much year after year, and the average incentive currently sitting at 7.3% today, which is much, much better than the 2% that we saw 2 years ago in 2022, but certainly shouldn't be considered normal, and it's also not something that I'm going to be giving dealerships a pass on either. I almost feel like it's a bit irresponsible for Cox Automotive to claim that the current state of the car market is normal, at least if pre-pandemic is what we're using to define what normal is. And the fact that inventory levels are technically returning to normal, but car prices have not, really does pour fuel on the fire and really shows how frustrating this car market currently is. Because it really highlights the fact that the issues with the current state of the car market really has nothing to do with supply and demand, and it hasn't had anything to do with it for a very long time now. The real issue here with the car market is incredibly high prices due to high trim levels, the abandonment of the lower and base model car, and dealership and automaker greed. And unfortunately, the fact that supply and demand hasn't resolved this issue, and we haven't seen car prices go down more, despite that inventory has absolutely increased and has returned to normal according to inventory levels, which is extra frustrating because it really shows us that the car market probably is never going to return to what many of us consider normal, which is really just pre-pandemic levels. Unless something major happens within the car market or within the economy as a whole, which causes car prices to just become fundamentally lower, unfortunately, I don't think car prices are going to return to 2019 levels, even though inventory has. And while that is very frustrating and definitely disappointing, it isn't something that should really surprise anyone if you've been paying attention over the last couple of years. Now, moving on, according to reports, dealerships have about 37% of their inventory being made up of model year 2025, which means that if you want to buy a 2024 year model, it could become the perfect time very, very soon in order to do that, because dealerships will no doubt be offering incentives and discounts off of these older cars. One thing that is incredibly interesting and that I do want to take a couple of minutes to highlight is what has been going on with Stellantis. Now, we know that Stellantis is a show and nothing has changed with that. In fact, I have a standalone video coming out talking about this specific topic very, very soon. But at the Paris Auto Show, Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares stated his intention to see the U.S. inventory get below 350,000 units before the end of this year. And Stellantis is making some major strides into that objective, which involves offering steeper and more aggressive discounts off of their model year 2023 vehicles. Yes, I said 2023, as well as discounting some of their 2024 vehicles in prep of 2025 vehicle rollouts. But you can see here that these efforts are in fact working, because for the first time, Stellantis does not take up all of the top spaces for the highest inventory automakers, and you can also see online that pretty much across Stellantis' entire umbrella, across different dealerships throughout the entire country, Stellantis is discounting their cars left and right. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy a Stellantis vehicle, because to be honest, I'm just generally not a fan of them. But if you are someone who has been wanting to buy a car under the Stellantis umbrella, now would be a perfect time to buy that, because you will no doubt get some great prices. Stellantis aside, we can see more of the same whenever it comes to inventory levels. Toyota, Lexus, and Honda are still in the bottom three whenever it comes to inventory, but Honda has made some major strides and they're no longer trailing behind with Toyota and Lexus. Instead, it is very close to Porsche, Subaru, and BMW with 51 days of inventory. While Toyota and Lexus are still neck and neck with one another, and they are far behind the competition with 33 and 36 days. Jaguar, on the other hand, has taken the spot of the highest inventory automaker, which was a spot that was previously held by Stellantis, with 155 days of inventory, quite a bit higher than the second place loser, which is Lincoln, which has 147 days supply. It's not surprising at all to see Lincoln in this position, because for the better part of the last year and a half or so, Lincoln has had inventory stacking up left and right. And similar to Stellantis and Jaguar and many of these other automakers that I've talked about on my channel, if you are looking to buy a Lincoln, you will no doubt be able to get a discount on that car. You can see here that there are far more automakers that have higher than average inventory than there are that have lower than average. But for the first time in my memory, none of these major automakers are falling into the category of having more than double the average day supply, which is something that I can't recall seeing for a very long time, definitely not within the entire year of 2024. The fact of the matter is that while some automotive experts may want to claim that the car market is in fact returning to normal, the facts don't lie. And even though inventory levels are technically returning to pre-pandemic levels, car prices are far from it. And truthfully, I think as things currently stand, I don't know that they ever will return to what we saw back 5 years ago in 2019, which is incredibly disappointing, because it feels as though we have for a number of years now been waiting for vehicle inventory to return to normal. And now that it finally has, it's disappointing to see that car prices haven't gone down more. And despite the fact that vehicle inventory is the highest that we've seen in years, the average vehicle listing price of a vehicle is still $10,000 more than what we saw in 2019. And until car prices finally fall, and until they fall by a substantial amount, I unfortunately don't think that anyone can say that the car market has returned to normal. If anything, the car market has sort of created a new normal with higher prices. But despite all of this, the good news is that dealerships are absolutely marking down their cars. And whether you're looking for a car from an automaker like Jaguar, Volvo, Lincoln that has very high inventory, or even automakers that have very low inventory like Lexus, Toyota, or Honda, the fact of the matter is you can most likely get a discount regardless of what automaker you're looking to buy from. And if you guys watched my video from earlier this week where I broke down vehicle makes that are being discounted, then you know that the discounts are there, and some of these discounts are substantial. And so if you are someone who is looking to buy a car, do not under any circumstances accept above MSRP pricing, because the facts don't lie, and the facts are pointing to the conclusion that dealerships are marking down cars. And it's not a matter of if you can get a discount on a car, it is simply a matter of by how much. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.